In this video, I'm going to teach you all the essential watercoloring techniques. You will learn how to create beautiful effects and techniques with things you will just have around the house. Now I'm going to show you watercolor techniques. These will be basic techniques as well as some experimental things, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. But let's start with the basics. I've created a worksheet for this tutorial. You can download the template for free on STAEDTLER.com. All the materials I'm using today are also linked in the description box below. At our first square, we want to create a simple flat wash. So we load our brush with water and go in to dissolve the pigment. I would recommend to create a lot of this because we need the same water pigment ratio all the time to create this flat wash. Now you bath your brush in the water and paint. Please don't only use the tip of the brush. And if you've done this, you go in and put your paint on the paper. Oh, I need a little bit more water, I see it. So you don't let it dry and try to get one brush strokes next to another so that you get the whole square filled up with the same color. You can also wiggle a little with the brush and go over it again, but don't overwork it or it would look weird. That's it for our flat wash. Next, I'm going to show you a gradient wash, which means we'll take color with a lot of pigment down to a very watery color. So I don't use that much water in the first place and load my brush with a lot of pigment instead. So we go in with a lot of pigment and load our brush. You can also go in again and dab some of the pigments into the side. So it's really, really dark, almost if you use it straight out of the tube. And now we rinse our brush with water and add some strokes of water. And as you can see, the pigment moves with the water and you get this nice gradient wash. At the end of this, or the other side of this field, I only want to have water, and you can show the pigments their way and even try to get to the other side, but I want to have this gradients. And that's it for the gradient wash. The next technique will be about color blending, because of course you won't always work with just or paint with just one color. But let's start with our blue color and load our brush. I will go in on the left side of our field and put it there. And then I rinse my brush and put a lot of water on the paper. Now my second color would be this beautiful magenta, and as with the blue I dissolve it with water first and get it on my brush, so I really bath my brush inside of the water pigments solution and bring it to the other side of the field. And then I go the other way around. So I rinse my brush and water it down. And where the colors get together, we'll see that we'll create a kind of a lilac. Now I'm going to paint with the famous wet on wet technique. And now you have to let go of control. I just put water on the paper, so I water my paper with a lot of water. And because this is a watercolor paper which can absorb a lot of water, you can create stunning effects, as you will see in a minute or a second. And now I go into, or I rinse my brush and go into my blue color. I take the pigment on my brush and then I'm going to release it inside of this or into this wet surface. And as you can see, there's some random things and the pigments flow and go into their own directions. You can't even control it, but I think it's a beautiful effect, and you can also work with different colors. And yeah, I'll show you more in the other sessions. One basic technique you'll need or use very often is the wet on dry technique. I lay down a little bit of the very watery color and create kind of a background, and then we have to let it completely dry until we layer our second color and work wet on dry. We need some time to let this dry completely, and in the meantime I will show you another effect. If you really use only a little bit of water or almost no water and put your brush inside of or load your brush with the color, bristles will spread and you can see the texture of the paper. So this is the dry brush effect. Okay, now that our first layer is completely dry, we can add our second layer and work wet on dry. Afterwards, I will go in with the second color, just right over this first layer. And yes, you can either do some easy brush strokes and see how the first color shines through the other one. Or you can, of course, paint leaves or anything else. And yeah, I think this is a really basic technique and also a technique I love to use, because you can add depth, you can add shadows, you can add movement into your picture or into your painting subject. Now let's try to lift a color. I lay down a heavy pigmented layering with the brush and just go in and color it. And next I'm going to rinse my brush and blot it on the paper towel so it's almost dry. And now you can use your brush like a mop or something and soak the color and pigment with your pencil. As you can see, this works really great, and you can get simple effects, simple but beautiful effects. And also, if you've got too much pigment, too much color, you can easily go in and lift the colors. That's it about color lifting. The next techniques will be more experimental, and I think that's the fun part. So we are working with different things you will have around or probably have around the house, like salt and these cotton buds, and also some foil and a simple paper towel. Now we'll experiment with salt. I take a lot of water and bring it onto the page. Now that everything is really wet, here comes our salt. I have some sea salt and some normal salt, like you have it in your in every household. And I sprinkle it into the liquid paint. I'll use some of this smaller salt crystals. Now we'll have to wait a second to see what will happen. The crystals and the smaller and the bigger salt crystals will soak up with the pigment and leave marks on the paper. So let's go on with the next technique. I want to show you what to do with cotton buds. We lay down color and water like we did in our last field. And next we go in with our cotton buds and lift the color. It's like this color lifting technique, but with cotton buds. And you can also take 2 or 3 in one hand and dab them on your paper and create some effects because you lift the color. And you can also like paint with them if you use them like a brush. So you go inside of the water pigment thing on your palette and bring it onto the paper, as you can see. So for our next technique, we're using foil. I use a lot of water to create random effects with our cling foil. And now I use this foil and just put it or crinkle it on my field. We'll get the effects when everything is dry. So we take it off, and as you can see, the foil crinkled and has left a lot of texture. And our next experimental technique will be with the paper towel. And I'm taking this normal paper towel, and you can also use just a part of it, rip it off, and crinkle it together or bring it together and lift color so you get this nice cloud effect. And our last technique is masking fluid. It's like a fluid which covers the page and protects it from absorbing color. Yeah, it's liquid, and I don't use my regular brushes because it can harm the brushes, or do harm to the brushes. I use a silicone pencil, which is easy to rinse, and now I apply it to the paper. Let's do just some simple dabs and strokes. Then we'll have to let it dry. Now we can go over it with a layer of color. So I load my brush with water and also this nice magenta color and just paint over it. And you will see where I put the masking fluid, the paper is protected and won't soak up the pigment and the water. And when your color is really dried, so not now, but your color has to dry, and then you can pull the masking fluid off and you'll see that your white color will show up. So here are our final results, and I think you can see the versatility of watercolors, and we showed them by using so many techniques and also experimented a little bit. It's pretty much fun. Now that you have learned all the watercolor techniques, we can go one step further. In the next tutorial, I'll show you 8 simple watercolor flowers that you will love. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the other watercoloring sessions for my art class.